Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 1. Then we turned and journeyed into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea, as the Lord spoke to me, and we skirted Mount Seir for many days. So, continuing here in chapter 2, we are continuing in Moses recounting the journey of the children of Israel since the time they left Mount Sinai, coming all the way to the point where they sit now at the banks of the Jordan River, going into more detail than they did at the end of Numbers, and explaining more detail than we even had during the book of Numbers when these accounts were written about what actually happened. Now we're getting into what the Lord spoke to him, what he was thinking, sometimes what the children of Israel had said to him during these days. So we get a pretty detailed account, and it's nice to read the extra detail to see what people were thinking, what people were doing, and to see, in most cases, the motivations for some of the things that occurred. So here we have them journeying in the wilderness, leaving Kadesh Barnea, going by the way of the Red Sea, and they've been going around Mount Seir, and the Lord decides to speak to Moses again about this. And the Lord spoke to me, saying, "You have skirted this mountain long enough. Turn northward and command the people, saying, you are about to pass through the territory of your brethren, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. Therefore watch yourselves carefully. Do not meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You shall buy food from them with money, that you may eat, and you shall also buy water from them with money, that you may drink." So he's saying, Esau, Edom, this is their mountain. This is what I've given them. This is their land. This is their possession. You're not going to war with them. They're going to fear that you are, but you are not, because you are not going to get any of this possession, period. He said, though, you go into their cities, you can buy food, you can trade with them, you can buy water from their wells, as they're willing to purchase things, or sell you things. You can do business with these cities, your surrounding cities, as you go through this journey. Sometimes we have this mental picture of the Israelites wandering in a complete barren, empty wilderness with no one around them, no civilization, but they would skirt cities sometimes. And the Lord is giving them permission to go buy money with the Edomites. You can go buy food with your money. You can go buy water and other things you need to drink with your money. You can do commerce with these other nations. Where would they have money? Well, they had money coming out of Egypt. Most of that probably gone at this point. But they also have cattle they can sell. They have flocks. They have things that they can sell for money. They can barter. And it gives us more of a detailed look at how much and how tough this kind of was. But as tough as it was, you have verse 7. "For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He knows you're trudging through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing." It wasn't easy traveling through the wilderness. It was tough. They watched people die. They watched their loved ones fall. They experienced rebellion. They experienced a great loss of life during this time. But the Lord had been with them the entire time, and they lacked for nothing. They had food to fill their bellies. They had tents to keep them out of the elements. They had clothes. They had sandals, they had water, they had every provision they needed. Wasn't a great life. It was a judgment, it was a punishment. But he was still with them through this punishment and blessed them and provided with them for everything they needed, if not everything they wanted. "And when we passed beyond our brethren, the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, away from the road of the plain, away from Elath and Ezion Geber, we turned and passed by way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab, nor contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given to the descendants of Lot as a possession. So if you remember back to Genesis, the Moabites were the descendants from the children that Lot had with his own daughters. So we went over that at the time. The Urim had dwelt there in times past, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. They were also regarded as giants like the Anakim, but the Moabites called them Em. The Horites formerly dwelt in Seir, but the descendants of Esau dispossessed them and destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their place, just as Israel did to the land of their possession which the Lord gave them. So, there were people as numerous and great and tall as the Anakim. But the Moabites destroyed them. They displaced them. Esau dispossessed them. These people who were not my chosen people were able to drive the giants from their lands. You will be able to drive the giants from yours when you come into it. It's kind of the point the Lord's getting to. Now rise and cross over the valley of Zered. So we crossed over the valley of Zered, and the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the valley of Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war was consumed from the midst of the camp. For just as the Lord had sworn to them, for indeed the hand of the Lord was against them, to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. So the people of the first counting, all those people 20 years old and above who were counted in the census, 38 years it took for all of those men to be consumed and destroyed and died and be removed from the camp of the Israelites. The people who refused to go into battle. The people who refused to go in to conquer. You were the men of war. You were the army, and you refused to go to war for your king. They needed to be destroyed and replaced with a new army who would go in to do battle for their king. That's the new generation. So it was when all the men of war had finally perished from among the people, that the Lord spoke to me, saying, this day you are to cross over to Ar, the boundary of Moab, and when you come near the people of Ammon, do not harass them or meddle with them, for I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession. That was also regarded as a land of giants. Giants formerly dwelt there, but the Ammonites called them the Zazuman, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim, but the Lord destroyed them before them, and they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, just as he had done for the descendants of Esau who dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Horites from before them. They dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, even to this day. And the Avim who dwelt in the villages as far as Gaza, the Caphorim who came from Kaphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place. So, as the Lord keeps pointing out, these were also lands of giants. All these places you see that I have given to descendants of the family of Abraham, the Edomites, the Moabites, all these people who you've seen also had to go into land of giants. And they conquered them because I drove them out from before them. These are not my chosen people. The Amorites, not my chosen people. Moabites, not my chosen people. Edomites, not my chosen people. But I still dispossessed the giants from the land before them and gave them victory. Hint, hint, I'm going to do it for you too. Your fathers didn't believe. You need to believe that when you cross into that promised land, that land of giants, as you guys called it, I will drive them out from before you there as well, just as I drove them out from before you, or before the other tribes. Rise, take your journey, and cross over the river Arnon. Look, I've given into your hand Sihon, the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it, and engage him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. And that continues to this day. People still sit in anguish over the Jews being in Israel. News cycle after news cycle, that's all it is. I'm 42 years old. Every couple years, it's the same thing. We need peace in the Middle East, and that peace is always spoken about as if it's some extra thing, some extraordinary thing that needs to be done. But all it is there are Jews there, Israel's there, and the surrounding nations want them dead and wiped from the face of the earth. And there will never be peace in that area until that happens for these people. Only we know better, because we know the Lord looks out for his chosen people, even to this day. His chosen people, not the church. We're not God's chosen people. As much as replacement theology will make you think that because of a horrible miscalculation on the way that people lack reading comprehension when it comes to Matthew and Mark. But church, not his chosen people. We're the bride of Christ. Two separate things. Now, his chosen people sit in enmity with him. Like they're not following him the way they should be following him. But the church, not God's chosen people. We are not Israel. Israel's a nation. And you can tell it's God's nation, because it's the one everyone hates. We're simply his church. We're to preach, be a nation of priests. And as it's said in Romans 11:11, paraphrasing it, but basically, when the fulfillment of the Gentiles comes in, as the bride of Christ fulfills its purpose, because of the way we are grafted in not a works-based salvation the way the Jews had to do in the Old Testament by the Old Covenant, it's going to provoke the Jews to jealousy and return to Christ. And return to truly worshiping the Lord. Won't happen until during the tribulation, during Jacob's trouble. Israel's trouble. And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, "Let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the road, and I will turn neither to the left or to the right. You shall sell me food for money, that I may eat, and give me water for money, that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwelt in Seir and the Moabites who dwell in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land which the Lord our God is giving us." But King Sidon of Heshbon would not let us pass through, for the Lord your God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand, as it is this day. The glory of the Lord, everything that's happening for these children of Israel, makes the heart of Sihon hard. It makes his heart obstinate. He sees these people blessed where they should not be blessed, and it makes him angry. It hardens his spirit, hardens his heart against God and against God's people. And God allows that to happen so that he might deliver this king into the hand of his people, his chosen people, so he can show them you, like your distant relatives, can overcome these giants before you. And the Lord said to me, See, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to possess it, that you may inherit this land. Then Sihon and all his people came out against us to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him over to us, so we defeated him, his sons and all his people. We took all his cities at that time, and we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones. Of every city we left none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves with the spoils of the city which we took. So people will read this and see that they genocided the city and this land. They took all of his cities. They killed men, women, children, everyone. They left no one left in these cities. They destroyed them all. Now, how can God be so bloodthirsty? It's because of the deep wickedness and sin that these people had fallen into. They refused the redemption. They refused the atonement. They refused to come back to the Lord in any way. These people could have turned to the Lord. Pharaoh could have turned to the Lord. He started to a few times, but because he was meant to be the deity, because God continued to attack via plague all of the gods of Egypt, his heart continued to become harder. He did not want to humble himself beneath the authority of this Jewish God, because he was to be the authority. Well, all these people of Canaan, the wickedness that they had fallen into was so great that Abraham was told, your descendants will be in a land that is not their own for 400 years. Because the Lord is waiting for the wickedness and the sin and vileness of these nations to come to its fullness. They could have turned from that wickedness. They chose not to. And so judgment was levied against them. Harsh judgment to remove these people and their wickedness from the face of the earth. We seem to have no problem understanding and accepting that the Lord flooded the earth because of the wickedness that was upon the face of it, and saving only one family. But when we get to these verses, we don't seem to like that very much. That he used the nation of Israel as a tool of judgment against these wicked people. That instead of raining fire and brimstone or flooding the world, that he used a people to destroy the wickedness of a vile culture from the face of the earth. But this is the tool the Lord used. This is what he did. Because of how wickedness these people were, this is what had to be done to remove them and their corrupting force from the land. From Aroer, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the ravine as far as Gilead, there is not one city too strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all to us. Only did you not go near the land of the people of Ammon, anywhere along the river Jabbok, or the cities of the mountains, or wherever the Lord our God had forbidden us. So they had victory everywhere they went, because the Lord fought before them. He strengthened them. He gave them victory over these wicked peoples who stood before them. But they did not go where they were forbidden. They went where they were told, where they were commanded. And because of that, they were blessed in victory, blessed in the struggle. Every city they came to was delivered to them. Nothing was too strong for their military. Not because they were the strongest, but because the Lord fought and guided their hand to victory. So moving on to chapter 3. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all his people and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon. So as they continue, now they're going towards Bashan, and Og, who's heard and knew what they did to Sihon, says, nope, we're coming out and we're destroying these people. But the Lord said, you've already had this great victory over Sihon, the king of the Amorites, and all of his cities. Don't fear what's coming. Don't fear his presence. Don't fear the fierceness of his armies. I delivered these people into your hands. I will deliver them into your hands as well. So the Lord our God also delivered into our hands Og, king of Bashan, with all his people, and we attacked him until he had no survivors remaining. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, all the region of Argob, this kingdom of Og and Bashan. All these cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many rural towns. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But all the livestock and spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. Once again, the wickedness that were brought into the world, removed from the world. The Lord bringing judgment upon Og and his people, the same way he brought judgment against Sihon, at the hands of Israelite swords and spears. And at the time we took the land from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were on this side of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians called Hermon Sirion, and the Amorites call it Senir. Just a footnote for the people of that day. All the cities of the plain, all Gilead and all Bashan, as far as Sakah and Edrei, the cities of the kingdoms of Og and Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits its length, and 4 cubits its width, according to the standard cubit. So, he's saying, on this side, he was all that remained of the giants, was Og. On this side of the Jordan, he was all that remained. Now, all these cities have fallen. All these things have fallen. You have seen victory. You've seen what happened. This is your history as this new generation. This is your history as an army. Look at all the things you've done, all the victories you've had as the Lord led you through. You have conquered. You have been victorious time and time and time again. And this land which we possessed at that time from Ur, which is by the river Arnon, and half the mountains of Gilead and its cities, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites. The rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to half the tribe of Manasseh. All the region of Argob, with all Bashan, was called the land of the giants. Jair, the son of Manasseh, took all the region of Argob as far as its borders, of the Gershonites and the Machironites, and called Bashan after his own name, Havoth Jair, to this day. So, the name gets changed to Havoth Jair instead of Bashan, because now the Israelites have conquered it. This is their inheritance. This will be the inheritance of Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh. All these lands and all these cities they conquer. If you remember back to the agreement they were trying to make to stay on the east side of the Jordan, they said, let us make cities and walled cities for our children. Well, what they kind of are talking about is repairing the walled cities they already took. So now all these people are going to fill in these cities that they've already taken over, repair the walls that are probably destroyed during their attacks and their sieging and their destruction of these cities. And now they're going to have these cities and this land for their own inheritance. I also gave Gilead to Machir, and to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave from Gilead as far as the river Arnon, in the middle of the river as the border, as far as the river Jabbok, the border of the people of Ammon, the plain also with the Jordan as the border, from Chinnereth as far as the east side of the Sea of Abernah, the Salt Sea, below the slopes of Pishgal. So these are now the borders of this eastern side of the Jordan, this land that they're to have. Then I commanded you at the time, saying, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All you men of valor shall cross over armed before your brethren, the children of Israel. But your wives, your little ones, and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall stay in your cities, which I have given you, until the Lord has given rest to your brethren, as to you, and they shall possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you shall return, or may return to his possession, which I have given you. So, per the agreement, you are going to go in and help the other tribes take over the land of Canaan. And once the Lord has given you your rest, then you may return. This is the inheritance you wanted, but now you're not going to be in it for quite some years. You're going to go out there and you're going to have to conquer with the rest of your brethren. You're not going to weaken the army of God. You're not going to put this army at risk, the rest of these tribes at risk, because you want to settle for what you found here and keep them from their inheritance there in the land that God actually promised you. And I commanded Joshua at that time, saying, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. So would the Lord do to all the kingdoms through which you shall pass. You must not fear them, for the Lord your God himself fights for you. Lord does the fighting. If you're going to see victory, you're going to see it at the hands of the Lord. Then I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. And what God is there in heaven or on earth that can do anything like your works and your mighty deeds? So Moses begins to speak and praise the greatness and mighty power that the Lord has started to show before his people. No longer the judgment and the weeding out of the people who did not want to follow in his commandments, but now showing the greatness and mightiness and loyalty to fight and bring victory for his children. What other God is there? What other false deity is there on heaven or on earth that can do the works like your mighty deeds? God here could also just be a divine being. What anything could there possibly, what other angel, what other demon, what other kind of anything is there? Heaven, earth, anywhere that could possibly do anything like you have done for us on this journey. And then he continues it, though. I pray, let me cross over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, those pleasant mountains and Lebanon. So Moses begins to praise the Lord. Lord, you've done all this great things. I'm now starting to see all your mighty works. Please let me cross over into the land. Please let me see this great and mighty land. Please let me see what you have for the children of Israel. But the Lord was angry with me on your account and would not listen to me. So the Lord said to me, enough of that. Speak no more to me of this matter. So because of everything that happened, the Lord had decided. He told Moses, you will not go into the promised land. And he's not going to listen to Moses' pleading. He's not going to listen to his praise. He's not going to listen to anything. No more. Do not speak to me about this any longer. My mind is made up. Your punishment is set. You will suffer the consequences of your actions. You went to that rock. You struck it twice when I asked you to speak to it. You chastised the congregation and made me look vain and empty. You did not raise me up and place me holy. You did not put me consecrated and sanctified before the children of Israel. You brought me low. So enough of that. You're not going into the promised land. You did something. You belittled me in front of the children of Israel, which could have caused them to stumble. Your punishment was given. Your punishment is set. Your punishment will be followed through. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift your eyes toward the west, the north, the south, and the east. Behold it with your eyes, for you shall not cross over this Jordan. But command Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. So he stayed in the valley opposite Beth Peor. And as he said, you will behold it with your eyes. You will go up to the top of Pisgah, and you will see it spread before you. And as we'll see in the end of Deuteronomy, the Lord is good for that. He is good for that promise. He sees him through. And it speaks as almost of him giving Moses a supernatural sight to be able to see what it will become after the Israelites take it over and conquer it and make it great. That he will see everything stretched out before him that his people that he led will do in that land. Something that hasn't happened yet, but he gets to witness it. Because as much as he does not deserve to enter the promised land because of the consequences of his own actions, the Lord loves him. He had a relationship with Moses that no one else would have, speaking face to face as a friend, speaking and conversing as if he was right there with him, as if he was standing by his side as a mentor and as a father. His love for Moses was not going to be diminished just because he was being punished. The love of God doesn't change because we don't do what he wished us to do. He punishes us because we are his children. And it's something we need to understand. That when we step out of line, we will be punished because we are his children. If we step out of line and do wicked things, and we don't see the chastisement of God, you gotta wonder if we're his child. Or are we still sitting in anonymity with him because we aren't of him? Because when we're his and he loves us, he will do what is best for us. And sometimes what is best for us is to be punished so we don't go further out and do what we know we shouldn't do and end up harming ourselves and those around us in the process. Look, God's love is great. It's amazing. It is abundant. And he loves us regardless of our state before him. When we step before him as his child, his love for us doesn't diminish. Even if he is in the midst of punishing us. Because his love is perfect and long-suffering and ever-enduring in a way that we can't quite comprehend because our flawed sense of love is not that good, is not that perfect. And we put conditions on our love that he does not. Just know when you are his child, that even when you misstep, his love for you is not diminished. Just turn back to him, tell him you're sorry, ask him for forgiveness, and sit back in his embrace. because he's always looking to embrace you. So that's where we will end it for this morning. Hope this was fruitful for you. Hope to see you back again next time. But until then, be blessed.